Is it water with the sheep in the box?
Okay, just a very brief one today. I had to get this off my chest and I couldn't find any better way to do it. There's this really kind of weird idea in conservative spaces, often openly stated by conservative politicians and commentators, that the best way out of poverty is not government handouts, which create a dependence on the state and encourage people to leech off taxpayers' hard-earned money, but instead to drag your way out of poverty through hard work, contributing to society with your labour rather than leeching off it or something.
You see, conservatives believe that simply giving people money doesn't help them escape poverty. On the contrary, it can keep them locked into it. Getting things without working for them is a very hard habit to break, so much so that it can become a way of life. According to my research, earning your way out of poverty is much more empowering and enduring than being supported by a variety of government programs, which do little more than maintain people in their poverty. This doesn't mean the government doesn't have a role to play. Indeed, wherever possible, the government and private charities should require people to work in exchange for social assistance. When we do this, we help people in two ways. First, through welfare, we're helping them meet their immediate material needs. And second, through work, we're helping them earn their own success, the key to a fulfilling and dignified life.
Now, of course, as a leftist soy boy snowflake SJW cuck, I take issue with this for a number of reasons, ranging from the obvious socialist idea that working often doesn't actually improve society any more than not working does, and in fact, a lot of jobs, most of them in fact, are either neutral or actively detrimental to the state of society, to simple stuff like that the worth of an individual shouldn't rely on their ability to work and be coerced into allowing themselves to be exploited for their labour, and that's just stuff I've talked about before, and almost certainly will again, but not really what I want to talk about today. No, see, what I wanted to talk about today is the strange hypocrisy that this idea exposes within conservative political ideology. See, it's all well and good to say if you work harder you can work your way out of poverty, if that's true, but here's the problem with that. It's not true, not really, due to other conservative policy positions, as we'll now briefly discuss. So here's where the hypocrisy comes in. Conservatives claim that the best way out of poverty is into work, all the while they either push down or oppose increases in wages, thus making it more and more difficult, impossible in some places, to escape poverty even through work, because conservatives necessarily have to support capitalism as an inherent part of their ideology, and capitalism incentivizes exploitation and poverty in order to concentrate as much capital as possible in as few hands as possible. So here we find ourselves once again. It's conservatives and the right in general who oppose raising the minimum wage, oppose things like free childcare, which may enable young parents to get back into work sooner, and don't want to incentivize people to work harder with decent wage and benefit packages, and yet also somehow feel entitled to the labour of others. You've probably seen all those signs around online that say shit like, nobody wants to work anymore. By the way, jobs going $2 an hour or some shit, and therein lies the problem. Conservatives want to pretend that they care about getting people out of poverty by encouraging them into work, but the work that is available doesn't actually pay well enough to achieve that aim, and these same people don't seem overly keen to, for example, push for a higher minimum wage. You see this in the US, where Walmart employees are the biggest group of food stamp recipients, and here in the UK, nurses have been forced to use food banks. 0-hour contracts mean that huge swathes of the population are out here receiving benefit payments whilst in work, and the amount of people in full-time work unable to cover all their bills without assistance is on the rise, as wages fail to keep up with inflation and the rising cost of living. And the reason for this? Well, it's pretty clear that those in power don't actually care about lifting people out of poverty or encouraging people into work, really. It's about othering and demonising the poor and those forced to rely on government assistance. If it wasn't, you'd see people like Ben Shapiro advocating for at least a $15 federal minimum wage, or Priti Patel backing the £15 minimum wage push here in the UK, but, well, that's just not going to happen, and the idea is kind of absurd. It's sort of ironic, really, that the term that's often used is to pull oneself up by one's bootstraps, when that term was originally intended to be intentionally ludicrous, because, of course, you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That would be ridiculous. As Jess Safaris of Useless Etymology put it, the phrase pull yourself up by your bootstraps originated shortly before the turn of the 20th century. It's attributed to to a late 1800s physics schoolbook that contained the example question, why can a man not lift himself by pulling upon his bootstraps? So when it became a colloquial phrase referring to socio-economic advancement shortly thereafter, it was meant to be sarcastic or to suggest that it was an impossible accomplishment. So to summarise, you cannot on the one hand advocate for everyone to get into work rather than relying on state handouts, whilst also making it impossible for most people to survive on a full-time wage, thus having no choice but to both work and rely on state handouts. You can't have it both ways. Either advocate for a robust welfare system and incentivise people to get into work by increasing wages and enabling them to live a decent life, or refuse to campaign to increase wages, put regulations in place to ensure and maintain workers' job security and dignity or greater union representation, and just accept that a certain amount of the population is going to languish in poverty, but that's okay because they deserve it or something. Anything else is pure hypocrisy, but that's just the Conservative position in general at this point, I guess. Maybe we'll return for a few other hypocrisies soon. Who knows?
Oh, wish I could stop this later. Oh, wish I could be as rich as you, my lord.
It's entirely possible. All you have to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
How do you do that?
Son, when I die, all of this will be yours.
Oh, yeah. Success! Wealth, here I come. Oh!